The email sat there, buried in the drafts folder of an old Gmail account untouched for years. No subject line, no recipient typed in, just a blinking cursor that once waited for more words. It would have been easy to overlook, lost among grocery lists, forwarded scripts and automated alerts from the early 2010s. But Scout Willis opened it, and everything changed. Before we dive into this emotionally charged story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more true, heartfelt narratives. These are stories that stay with you long after they're told. Scout hadn't intended to go digging through her father's emails. It was one of those late nights at her mother Demi's place, where old memories resurfaced with the quiet ease of nostalgia and a bit of wine. She was helping Demi sort through digital files, backing up old pictures and documents from outdated devices. Somewhere between syncing a phone and scrolling through folders labeled Work, Personal, and Taxes, she found the account. The name on it, Bruce W. Drafts. It hit her in the chest before she even clicked. Scout had learned to live with silence. The kind of silence that comes not from absence, but from someone still being there, yet fading. Her father, Bruce Willis, once the invincible hero of action films, now lived in a world slowly closing in. Frontotemporal dementia had taken more than his words. It had taken pieces of who he was. She clicked through dozens of unfinished notes. Many were mundane. A grocery list with cherry tomatoes X3, a half-written birthday wish for someone named Ted. Then there it was. The title simply read, For Scout. Her stomach tightened. The draft was only a few short paragraphs. Some sentences trailed off mid-thought. There were misspelled words. A few deletions, restarts, and that familiar rhythm she recognized from his voice, hesitant when emotional, even back when he could speak fluently. Scout leaned back, her heart pounding, as if she'd stumbled upon a conversation frozen in time, the kind of message that begged to be heard, even if the sender never hit send. She didn't read it all. Not yet. Just the first lines. Just enough to know it was meant for her. Something personal. Something unfinished. She closed the laptop. For the next hour, she sat in the kitchen, staring at the old kettle on the stove. Demi had gone to bed, unaware of what Scout had just found. Outside, the Los Angeles night was unusually quiet. Inside, her mind roared. Scout wasn't one to cry easily. She'd grown up learning how to carry emotions with a kind of quiet strength like her mum. But this was different. This wasn't grief in the traditional sense. It wasn't about mourning someone who was gone. It was mourning the space between what was said and what was never spoken. She thought about calling her sisters. Rumor would answer. Always the anchor. Tallulah might still be awake, scrolling or writing or painting, but this felt too heavy for a phone call, too fragile. She returned to the living room, opened the laptop again, and stared at the screen. Her finger hovered over the mouse, trembling slightly. For Scout. 2 words that could mean everything or nothing, 2 words that in the right moment held the weight of years. In that quiet house, with nothing but the hum of the refrigerator, Scout whispered to herself, why didn't he send it? She didn't know then that reading that email would become the beginning of something much bigger than a single moment. It was the first ripple in a wave of emotion the world hadn't seen coming. She opened it the next morning. The house was still quiet, sunlight beginning to press against the kitchen window as if reluctant to interrupt. Scout sat at the table, her laptop open, the same draft glowing on the screen. For Scout. No punctuation, no subject line, just those words and a page waiting to breathe. She began to read. Scout, I don't know if I'll ever send this. Maybe I just need to say things out loud to myself first. The sentence already made her stop. That was her dad, never one to dive into feelings head first, always circling the water, dipping in when no one was watching. I think about you a lot, not just you now, but you as a little girl. You used to stand in the yard in your yellow dress and demand I listen to your made-up songs. Scout smiled, tears welling. She remembered that dress. It had a tiny rip near the shoulder she refused to let Demi fix. She used to spin until the sky tilted. You always had a light. I don't think I ever said that the right way. You don't wait for the world to see you. You make the world feel seen. She read that line twice. What followed was less coherent. Half sentences, mentions of specific moments, a drive back from Ojai, a fight over college, a birthday call he missed. There was no through line, just memory fragments, but they were his, and they were for her. I never knew how to say I was proud of you without sounding like a line from a movie. Scout laughed softly. That line was a line from a movie, but it was the most honest thing he could have written. Some sentences were clearly edited mid-thought. You remind me of your, scratched out. Your art matters, even if you don't always, stopped. There was a sentence she couldn't finish reading at first. I'm sorry for the things I didn't say when I could. She stopped there, got up, walked to the sink, let the water run cold over her wrists. Her breath came in short, shallow waves. This was her father speaking across time and silence. A message from before his voice had changed, before words slipped through his fingers like sand. There were parts of him in that email that hadn't existed in a long time. She sat back down. I hope one day you'll know, without me needing to say it, that I love you in every version of you. That was the last complete thought in the draft. After that, only a single line remained. Whatever happens, I carry you with me. And then it ended. Scout closed the laptop again, but this time with care, as if she were placing something fragile back on a shelf. She didn't know what to do with it. Part of her wanted to keep it just for herself, guard it like a relic. Another part wanted to print it, frame it, bury it beneath the roots of that old oak tree in Idaho where they used to camp. But mostly she felt something shift. Like this incomplete message had somehow said exactly what she needed to hear. She sat still, watching light stretch across the floor, carrying words that had waited too long to be heard. And in that silence, Scout made a choice. She wasn't going to let these words stay hidden. It took her 4 days. Scout kept the printed email folded inside a notebook she carried everywhere. Grocery runs, yoga class, a quiet cafe in Silver Lake. The pages were worn at the edges before she even made up her mind. Every time she touched them, the weight of the unsaid pressed harder on her chest. She didn't want attention. That wasn't the point. But the more she sat with the words, the more they felt like something that belonged to more than just her. There was something universal in her father's stumbling attempt to reach her, something unfinished but sincere and utterly human. So she opened her Instagram. Her fingers hesitated above the keyboard. She wasn't sure how much to share. Not the entire email. That felt sacred. But maybe part of it. Maybe the line that had stayed in her head like a quiet drumbeat. I hope one day you'll know, without me needing to say it, that I love you in every version of you. She typed it. Then, below it, added her own words. My father never sent this email. I found it by accident. It's incomplete and messy and perfect in ways I can't explain. It's the last time I'll ever hear his unfiltered voice. I wanted to keep it to myself, but I think someone out there might need to hear this today. She paused. Then, she posted it. What followed wasn't something she could have predicted. Within an hour, her notifications exploded. People weren't just liking or sharing, they were writing paragraphs, essays. Thousands of comments poured in from strangers who had lost parents, who had never heard I love you, who were living through the slow ache of watching someone disappear while still alive. One woman wrote, My mum has ALS. I haven't heard her voice in a year. Your post made me feel less alone. Another, my dad died before I came out. I never knew how he felt about me. This made me cry in the best way. Scout read them, heart pounding. For the first time in months, she felt connected not by grief, but by something gentler. Recognition, shared space, love in its many fractured, imperfect forms. But not everyone saw it that way. Within a day, some blogs picked up the post. Headlines ranged from heartfelt to invasive. Bruce Willis's daughter posts private letter. Scout shares emotional message amid father's decline. Then came the skepticism. A few comments accusing her of clout chasing, exploiting her father's condition, turning pain into performance. Scout didn't respond. She never did, even when one account said, "This feels like a PR move. Let him have his dignity." That one stung. She closed the app for a while. Later that night, Rumor called. Her voice was warm, steady. "I read it," she said. "It was beautiful. He'd be proud." Scout exhaled. "I wasn't sure if I should have posted it," she admitted. "You didn't do it for them. You did it for you. And for whoever needed to hear it." Tallulah sent a string of emojis, tears, hearts, stars, and a voice memo that simply said, "Thank you for putting words to the things we all feel but don't know how to say." The next morning, Scout walked to the park and sat under a sycamore. She listened to the birds, to the quiet hum of people living their lives. The notebook rested in her lap. She thought about the email, not as a message frozen in a digital draft, but as something now alive, breathed into the world through thousands of shared moments. And despite the backlash, the noise, the discomfort of being vulnerable in public, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: relief. The days that followed felt surreal. What began as a quiet tribute between a daughter and her fading father had turned into something far greater. Scout's post echoed across social media like a quiet bell, soft but impossible to ignore. People weren't just reacting anymore, they were opening up. Across platforms, a wave of confessions began. Parents shared voice recordings they had saved from loved ones who could no longer speak. Daughters posted screenshots of final texts. Sons uploaded old voicemails with words they hadn't heard in years. Something about the rawness of Scout's message gave people permission to feel, to remember, to mourn out loud. Scout watched it unfold from a distance. She didn't repost anything. She didn't add commentary, but she read. She read everything. Late into the night, her phone's glow lighting up the silence of her room, she scrolled through stories that made her laugh, ache, and weep. Somewhere in Ohio, a teacher wrote, "I played Scout's quote to my class. Then I asked them to write a letter they'd never send. We cried. We healed." In Sweden, a nurse commented, "We printed the message and posted it in the memory care ward." Even if our patients don't remember us, we remember them. It was overwhelming, and yet strangely grounding. Her grief no longer felt like a private wound. It had become a thread in a vast, quiet tapestry of human connection. Then the media noticed. Major outlets ran features on her post. Talk shows quoted the line from Bruce's draft. Experts were invited to speak on the emotional cost of caregiving, of watching a loved one slowly slip away. Scout was mentioned not as a celebrity's daughter, but as a voice, unintended, untrained, but undeniably authentic. Still, she remained quiet, until she got a message. It was short, direct, from someone she hadn't spoken to in over a decade, John Travolta. "I saw the post. Thank you for sharing that. Bruce would have said it if he could, I know that." Scout stared at the screen, stunned. Bruce and John had shared years of friendship, the kind built between trailers and stunt rehearsals and late-night whiskey talks. She had vague memories of them laughing together in the kitchen, their voices filling every corner of the house. She replied simply, "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." That message stirred something else. She began receiving letters, real ones. Handwritten envelopes arrived at Demi's home, at her own apartment. People who didn't use social media, who had read about her story in the newspaper or heard it on the radio, wrote with trembling cursive and heartfelt ink. One letter came from a man in his 80s. "I lost my wife to Alzheimer's. I never told her how beautiful she was when she forgot my name. Your father's words helped me say goodbye." Another, from a teenager. "My mom doesn't talk much anymore, but I told her I love her anyway, just in case she still hears me." Scout kept them all. She didn't know what she was becoming, a writer, an advocate, just a girl grieving out loud. But what she did know was this. The email wasn't just for her anymore. It had become a bridge between the living and the remembered, between silence and sound, between what we say and what we wish we'd said. And as more stories surfaced, she felt something deep within her begin to transform. She was no longer only mourning her father's fading voice. She was beginning to find her own. Scout didn't tell anyone she was going. She booked a one-way ticket, packed light, and drove alone from the Boise airport in a rented SUV. The cabin in Idaho had once been Bruce's retreat. tucked away between pines and quiet roads, untouched by paparazzi or schedules. Here the silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. She hadn't been back in years. The place looked the same. The deck still creaked in the same spot. The chipped mug with the faded yippee-ki-yay still sat on the shelf, stained with time. A few photo frames collected dust. Scout moved slowly through the house as if afraid to disturb the stillness. She took the printed email from her bag and sat in the old armchair by the window. She hadn't read it aloud yet, not once. Her voice trembled as she began. "Scout, I don't know if I'll ever send this." Word by word, she gave his silence sound. At times, her voice cracked. At others, it steadied. She didn't rush. She paused when she needed to. When she reached the final line, "Whatever happens, I carry you with me," she whispered it twice. And then, she let the silence return. She didn't cry. Not like before. There was something different now. A stillness in her chest that felt like peace. Not because everything made sense, but because she no longer needed it to. She stepped outside and walked toward the trees. They were taller now, or maybe she was just smaller. Somewhere near the back of the property stood the oak where Bruce used to hang a hammock and read scripts. She sat on the ground beneath it, sunlight dappling through the branches. It was here that she understood something. Her father hadn't needed to send the email. He had written it. That was enough. In writing it, he had reached out. And in reading it, she had reached back. The rest of the world might never know the full story, but she did. And it was hers to carry. Not like a burden, but like a torch. Back in Los Angeles, she returned to her quiet routine. But something had changed. The fear that had once wrapped around her grief like barbed wire had loosened. She began journaling more, speaking at small support groups, even guest writing for a mental health blog. She shared not just her father's story, but the bigger truth it carried. Love doesn't need to be perfect to be real. Words don't need to be spoken to be felt. Months later, someone stopped her on the street. "Are you the one who posted that quote from your dad?" Scout nodded, unsure what to expect. The woman smiled softly. "It helped me write to my son. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Thank you." Scout watched her walk away and felt something warm spread through her chest. Bruce was still with her, not in voice, not in presence, but in the quiet legacy of love left behind, in incomplete sentences. In old mugs, in trees and silence and drafts never sent, and now she was ready to live forward. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful human stories. Real moments, real voices, real heart. And if you want to explore more stories about family, memory, and healing, click on the video now appearing on your screen. Your next chapter is just one story away.